Hi, and welcome to the Sam Sorbo Show. Thanks so much for joining me. We are going to have a lot of fun today. I've been extraordinarily busy, but I've been collecting a bunch of stuff to talk with you guys about. So we're going to talk about election reform. That really is the most pressing issue right now, the path forward. And also, what we should be doing. I have a special guest joining me for the second half of the show. So do stay tuned for that. And there's just a lot going on. So thanks so much for joining me. Let's get started. First of all, I have to point out that my new book, Words for Warriors, is coming out very soon, January 26th. If you haven't ordered your copy, please order it now. It is available for pre-orders on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and Books A Million and anywhere fine books are sold. I'm very excited about it. It is basically it's a reckoning of our language and the way that our language has been sort of misused and hijacked, if you will, by the left. And I'm sick and tired of it. And so I'm making a stand and I'm just reclaiming some of these words. And so you'll find some really cool words in here. You'll find the word bigot. They just tried to redefine the word bigot. And I'm calling their bluff. I'm saying, no, we don't need to redefine words. We need to understand the words' definitions in and of themselves. Humanism is in here. House of Representatives, it's a little bit of a recapturing of words that we should know that maybe we've forgotten. Grassroots is in here. Also the Green New Deal. Oh yeah. Delegate. Demagogue. Maybe there's some words in here that you've actually never heard. Of course, I cover climate change. I have a nice large installment on college, which is kind of fun. Cisgender, cissexual, cis is defined in here. We got Black Lives MAGA and Black Lives Matter, of course. And incidentally, have you heard what they've been up to lately? All right, let's start on some of the topics in the news. Mike Lindell is calling foul. He says he's done an interview with the Epoch Times, and if you don't get the Epoch Times, I highly recommend it. I very much enjoy that newspaper, and so he's given this really great interview over there because he says that he is now a victim of the cancel culture that has been really pervasive, and it's something that we ought to be fighting back against. So he told Epoch Times that retailers were being forced to delist his products, even though he is in the big box stores. Kohl's, Bed Bath & Beyond, and Wayfair recently notified him that they won't be continuing to carry his products. And of course, the reason for that is that he's been an outspoken supporter of Donald Trump and the business policies of Donald Trump. And that seems to be his great crime, is to be supportive of the 45th president of the United States. I never thought that I would be in a place such as this, where we would be somehow having to apologize for supporting a duly elected leader of a free nation. But, well, who am I kidding? Are we a free nation? Are they are still claiming that he wasn't duly elected. And it's so funny because, of course, in response, they're claiming that Biden was. I don't know if you've seen the memes. They're all over the place. But, they claimed Russian collusion for the previous election for 4 years. They said, oh, the Russians did it. And, they're problematic because they're trying to control our elections, and the elections hasn't been fair, and there's all kinds of problems with the election. And now that Joe Biden was elected, now all of a sudden, the election is perfectly fair, and there's nothing wrong with the election system, and there's no tampering whatsoever. There's no foreign interference. There's not a single problem whatsoever. It just, of course, it begs credulity. And of course, more than half the country knows that the election was compromised. And we don't even have to go farther than that. Was it compromised? Absolutely, it was compromised. That's why there were so many lawsuits. But you're not allowed to say that. In fact, YouTube might take this down because I just said it. Why do I say that? Because I don't believe it begs credulity to believe that an octogenarian white candidate got more votes after not campaigning than a brilliant spokesman, campaigner, Black president, first Black presidential candidate of the United States. It simply defies logic. So that's what I'll say about that. And I think we all, sort of understand that. So that doesn't prevent the left from invoking the cancel culture. And the reason that they have to invoke the cancel culture is because they have to actively deny the truth, or it will prove their lies. And so in order to deny the truth, they have to shut it up, because if you allow the truth out there, then the lies will be exposed, just as natural shrapnel, basically. He said, this is Mike Lindell again. He said, these are groups that were hired to attack and crush my companies to cancel my pillow out. And they're attacking these people like Bed Bath & Beyond. They succumb to the pressure. And, that's their choice. But you know what? This is the time we all have to stand up against this, because honestly, if you don't stand up against it, you're next. Case in point, the Antifa movement is now actively against Joe Biden. I don't know if you saw this, but in Seattle, the Antifa terrorists rioted again, targeting an Amazon store. Oh, yeah. And so in fact, they even put on the store signs of guillotine Bezos. They're simply out for blood. They don't care whose blood it is. They don't have an ideology except that of mayhem and murder. And so if you think that by appeasing them, that somehow you're going to escape their wrath, you have another thing coming. And I think that's what Mike Lindell very, very cleverly sort of alludes to. So they're still busy destroying Seattle, and electing Biden did nothing to appease them. And I'm sure you've seen the other things, the banners where they're, in fact, they attacked Biden. They said, he's not our president. It's crazy. They're crazy. All right. So this is off of Daniel Greenfield. I wanted to talk about this because he tends to go under the surface and dig a little bit deeper. Democrats outsource political repression to corporate monopolies. And that's what we're talking about right now. And the way that he looks at it, well, I'll just read this for you. The repression will be televised. It will go better with Coke. It will promise to clear up your bad breath and make your toilet shine. It will be in the cloud. It will be digitized and monetized. It will have a trademark, a brand, and it will be outsourced to the private sector. Democrats love public-private partnerships, and they outsourced political repression to the private sector. And that's what we're seeing today. And so if they can't get it because they control the company, like Amazon Prime, Prime is banning videos, is banning content that disagrees with their worldview. And by the way, let's be clear. Tolerance is not an actual thing. It's a fake thing. Tolerance is a placeholder. And when we run out of words, when we stop the discussion, the only thing left is violence. Tolerance is, and I'm not calling for, by the way, not calling for violence. I'm saying we need to have discussion in order to avoid violence. The words, the diplomacy is the ersatz, is the placeholder in order to work out differences that otherwise will be worked out with violence. So we need the discussions because we need to come to understanding and agreement in some way, shape, or form. If we can't do that, then it will naturally devolve into violence. That's just the nature of things. And so what does the left seek to do now? They seek to stifle the conversation. And the right somehow thinks that, well, okay, if we don't talk about it, the conflict will go away. If we pretend to tolerate, the conflict will somehow be resolved. But of course it won't. Of course it can't. And of course, part of the strategy is take away all the words and then you have violence. So he continues, the Constitution has inconvenient things to say about freedom of speech. And so the Democrat government of elected and unelected officials outsourced the problem of censoring and suppressing speech to the handful of big tech monopolies of the internet. Now, I know I've heard the argument, well, those monopolies, they're private businesses, so they can do whatever they want. Sure, they're private businesses, so they can do whatever they want. In fact, I would agree with that. And I was against the forcing of florists and bakers to perform services for people with whom they disagreed, to force them to perform services for people with whom they disagreed. And yet, the left was totally on board with that. Yes, make them perform. In which case, I have to say, make Facebook and Twitter perform services for people with whom they disagree. Of course, they work around it because they say it's not freedom of speech because that's hate speech. But freedom of speech is actually a thing to protect hate speech. Because if we didn't like the speech, said that wrong. If we like the speech, then there's no reason to ensure the freedom of such speech. Freedom of speech is there to ensure the freedom of the speaker to voice disagreements with you, not agreements. If he agrees with you, you're not going to have a problem with that. There's no reason for the First Amendment. It's precisely because his speech is hateful to you, is distasteful to you, is disgusting to you, is whatever, is in disagreement with you, that we need freedom of speech. And the reason that we have the First Amendment and freedom of speech is to avoid war. That's what it's there for. It's to avoid conflict, physical conflict, because it's through language only that we can actually avoid physical conflict. Think about it. Have you ever gotten into like a nasty drag out argument to the point where seriously, like the next move would be to attack the person physically because there's no overcoming with words the animosity, the aggravation, or the anger. It necessarily resorts to violence when you take the words away, when you run out of things to say, or when you are not allowed to say those things. He writes, the public-private partnership between big government and big monopolies is based on Democrats and corporations doing the dirty work of repressing each other's opponents. So they are now in collusion. There's that word again. They are colluding against the people who disagree with them or against their competition. And boy, they got it all zippered up. The press was so entirely against Trump, almost entirely against Trump, with, some minor exceptions. Yours truly, Newsmax, AON, which are all, Talk America, they're all, small potato. Well, Newsmax is taking a larger role now, but by and large, small potatoes compared to the big networks. And the big networks, and I did it in my book, actually. Let me see if I can find it while we're chatting. I put this together with the relationship between the media and the political people. And the relationships there's a lot of political media marriages and brother sisters, a lot of them. And I can't, I'll find it in a minute and share it with you. And this is now, there's just so many of them. So, I'm trying to think of them off the top of my head, but the brother of the press secretary is the CEO of a major media corporation. The wife of the first aide to the president's aide is, a reporter. I mean, it's crazy. It just goes on and on and on, the relationships. And that's why we're seeing up in Washington, we're seeing that there's one set of laws for the little people and a separate set of laws for everybody else, for the elites, because they're the elites. It's under mainstream media, or MSM. ABC News executive producer Ian Cameron is the husband to Susan Rice, the national security advisor. CBS president David Rhodes is the brother of Ben Rhodes, Obama's deputy national security advisor for strategic communications. ABC News correspondent Claire Shipman is the wife of White House press secretary Jay Carney. And of course, these are dated because we didn't see any of this in the Trump administration. What we did see nepotism, right? Because he got his family involved. But between you and me, you've got a guy that is roundly derided on all sides by most of the major media outlets. Who else is he going to take to work closely with? And in fact, I would argue that a lot of the people that he tagged or kept in office, he should have distanced from himself. A lot of traitors in there. ABC News correspondent Claire Shipman is the wife of, I said that. ABC News and Univision reporter Matthew Jaffe is the husband to Obama's deputy press secretary, Katie Hogan. ABC president Ben Sherwood is the brother of Obama's special advisor, Elizabeth Sherwood. CNN president Virginia Mosley is the wife of Hillary Clinton's former deputy secretary, Tom Nides. And Clinton's White House communications director, George Stephanopoulos, of course, became a journalist at ABC after leaving the White House because he was so good at making up stuff. It's all in the book here. So the associations are innumerable, and they really managed to cement a kind of a ruling class because they've got the echo chamber all sewn up. They can say whatever they want, and then it just goes around and they get other people to say it. It's like I suggested a while ago that you get a group of people who are comfortable not wearing masks, and all of you frequent one store at the same time without your masks on, and then see what the store does when there is 5, 6, 7 people who all don't have masks. Then see what the store does. And this is the same kind of thing. So if ABC says it, then CBS will say it, and they'll say it at the White House, and then NBC will report on it, and then CBS will report on what NBC reports, and it just goes on and on and on. It's an echo chamber. So after I did that rundown in this book under mainstream media, or MSN, I talked about the fact that the corporations that own the media in this country are few and enormous. If you believe that all politicians are alike and that Trump has a similar bench of enamored reporters, just check his coronavirus briefings, or frankly, almost any article in virtually any publication. Facebook, Google, and YouTube are arrayed against him as well. Well, we've seen that play out because they banished him as the sitting president of the United States. There's also this: 5 major corporations control roughly 90% of your media. 5. And guess which way they tilt? So you've got NBC, Comcast, that is NBC, MSNBC, CNBC, Telemundo, Sky, E, Universal Pictures, BuzzFeed, and Focus Features. Then you've got Disney. Disney is ABC, ESPN, Pixar, Miramax, Marvel Studios, History Channel, Nat Geo, Hulu, 21st Century Fox, and Fox Entertainment. Then you've got Viacom CBS. That's CBS News, CBS Entertainment Group, MTV, Nick Jr., BET, CMT, Paramount Pictures, Simon & Schuster, publishers, right? Showtime, Smithsonian Channel, NFL.com, Jeopardy, and 60 Minutes. AT&T Warner Brothers is CNN, HBO, Cinemax, TMZ, Time, Warner Brothers, Cartoon Network, Warner Music Group, Hachette Livre, which is a publishing company again, Turner, DC Comics, TBS, and TNT. And then you can add on to that News Corp, which is Fox News, the New York Post, the Wall Street Journal, and HarperCollins. Boom. That's it. So I continue in the book since I'm on a roll here. Notice anything odd? The smallest one of the 5 major infotainment distributors skews more neutral than the rest. Not to the right. None of them are conservative out of all of the sources. So there's an illustration that's online that I refer you to. And frankly, Joseph Goebbels said, "He who controls the medium controls the message. He who controls the message controls the masses." And that's what we're dealing with. And as they control a great deal right now, they are scrubbing the history books to erase any impropriety or any kind of objections to what we saw in the elections. I will say this. Texas challenged, I think it was Pennsylvania's results. And the Supreme Court said Texas doesn't have a standing to challenge Pennsylvania's reports. So imagine if one of the governors in one of the states said, you know what, I'm not happy with how this election sort of worked out. And by the way, Rick Scott in Florida cleaned up the elections after the debacle with the hanging chads and the Bush election, cleaned it up so that Florida reported finals at, I think, 10 o'clock at night, like boom, right away. So for other states not to be able to do that is really absurd. I mean, they can't claim that it can't be done because it was done. But in any case, if any of the states had said, you know what, I'm not, if any of the governors had said, I'm not happy with the way that the election proceeded, and I disagree, and we're going to send different delegates, and these are the delegates that you will hear from, then it would have already been proven that another state couldn't challenge those delegates. But they were wusses in the other states because they could have preserved the integrity of the election. But they were wusses. And that makes me kind of sad, I have to say. Pretty annoyed. There's a fabulous article in the Boston Herald written by Howie Carr called "Thanks for Everything, President Trump. Thanks for the balance in my 401k, tax cuts for the middle class, and destroying ISIS." It's a beautiful article. He thanks the president for everything you've done. It shouldn't be ending this way, but I and 74 million other Americans just want to say thank you for all your efforts on our behalf over the past 4 years. Actually, since you came down the escalator at Trump Tower back in the summer of 2015. And then he says, in no particular order, and he goes through an entire litany of things that the president has accomplished. He starts with restoring the U.S. as the world's leading producer of energy. after your predecessor sternly lectured us that we, quote, couldn't drill our way out of our dependence on unstable Middle Eastern oil providers. Thank you for the tax cuts for the middle class. Thank you for destroying genocidal ISIS, which your predecessor called the junior varsity. Thanks for shutting off the endless flow of illegal immigrants at the southern border and the unending supply of MS-13 gangbangers, among other criminals, as well as the welfare-dependent, illiterate indigents who were so destabilizing American society before you came president. Thank you for calling out the endless hypocrisy of the media, what you so aptly described as very fake news. And I'm not going to read all of them, but thank you for doing more to promote peace in the Middle East than all of your predecessors combined. The enormity of the accomplishments of Donald J. Trump after simply 4 years in office, when he was dramatically opposed and hindered at every step, boggles the mind. And it makes you simply have to understand that you have to understand that the reason that things don't get done in the conservative vein in DC is that DC is objectively not conservative in any way, shape, or form. And people who go there, by and large, they may claim to be conservative, but they are compromised almost immediately upon entry. They're compromised by either personal issues or public issues, or just a difficulty in towing the line. And that's why it doesn't get done. And that's why it took a complete outsider in Donald Trump. And the reason that we don't have Donald Trump as president today is because the establishment didn't want him. The swamp, of course, didn't want him, but the establishment Republicans didn't want him. Because if they did, they could have done something, and they did nothing. They didn't even try. In fact, they turned on him so quickly, it kind of made your head spin. So with that, I'm going to introduce my guest to discuss some more of this. Joe Messina is the host of The Real Side with Joe Messina. He takes the issues, especially the controversial ones like politics and prejudice and religion and illegal immigration, et cetera. He brings people in from different sides to share their viewpoint, but the conversation is always respectful, and you're sure to learn something new, even if you don't agree. And he gets a lot of disagreement on his show. Welcome to the program, Joe Messina.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate the time.
It's great to, wow. And it's great to see you. I haven't seen you in so long.
Yeah. I'm sorry that I'm not well coiffed, because here in California, the only one who can get a haircut is His Highness, Mr. Nuisance. I mean, seriously.
Well, and Pelosi, she can get haircuts too.
Oh, yeah, that's true too. That's true. Yeah. I go to like a Supercuts kind of place, the old barber shop. They don't want to do anything right now. So, and I don't blame them, because I don't know if you heard, but in LA County, they're now concerned, not with the restaurants going into business, but they're now concerned with all the waste that is being produced with all these takeouts. So they're thinking about putting an ordinance in place. Yeah, you're everybody's laughing right now going, oh, come on, this is made up. No. So the LA County supervisors are getting together to try to figure out what to do with this onslaught of plastic and plastic straws and paper straws and styrofoam. I'm thinking, really, this is all we have to worry about? Seriously?
Well, I mean, I noticed that immediately with coronavirus, there was no longer any effort to not use plastic bags. It was all plastic bags all the time. And in fact, the reusable bags were like, no, don't bring those near me. I'm not touching your reusable bags, right?
Right. Oh, right. And it's funny to watch what goes on in the supermarkets and how people are dealing with their bags. And they come in with the remember the bags that they made us buy, which was the cloth or
Yeah.
right. And people come in and the cashiers are looking at them like, no, 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 we'll not be having that at all. So
Right.
it's
And you couldn't you couldn't they refused to touch your bag, so you had to bag it yourself, or you could pay for the bags and then they would bag it for you because you were buying new bags. But
when you drive over the border into California, I bet you hear that Twilight Zone theme. You know,
eh,
what I'm saying? You come into this state, it's totally different. Newsom is. I think I reached out to you a couple of days ago. We were 3 days. This is a major metropolitan city. We were 3 days without electricity in this town. And I had to go get a generator, and you know the area I live in. You're familiar with it. There's no reason for this. This is like Venezuela North now.
yes.
The internet came up last night at 6 o'clock. This is crazy.
Yeah. That's right. In fact, you were kind of on the bubble as to whether you were going to be able to come on the show this morning, because you're like, I think I'll have internet. I'm not really sure. It's crazy what gruesome, I call him gruesome, is doing there. I was just in California for the week, as you probably know. I'm moving, so I was there moving. There, you couldn't eat out. Everything is takeaway. So so many restaurants aren't even functioning. Although I did go to one restaurant. It's a very good restaurant. I mean, they just make really good food, but like real food, not fast food. And my husband ran in to pick it up because you could only pick it up to take it away. And he said, Sam, I kid you not, they had at least 30 checks open on the board that they were trying to fill.
You know, up until recently, you could eat outside. And Sam, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I'm looking at this and I'm trying to figure out. They put these tents up in parking lots,
Yeah.
okay? And right, you got one or two of the walls are wide open. You've got wind whipping through there. You've got servers walking food from inside a clean restaurant to outside. You and I get to sit at a table, used to, that had oil on the ground and all this kind of wonderful stuff. And you say, how is this safer than eating inside? I don't understand this at all.
Well, I
But
was there in August in San Bernardino, and you could sit outside. It's just that you would melt. I mean, it was so hot. And so really it's almost like it's like a death by a thousand cuts. It's a slow torture. And it just seems to me that it's so sinister what they're doing. Although I don't know if you noticed, the WHO just came out right after, literally the day that Biden was sworn in, and said that the testing is too severe. I can't remember the word, but too sensitive, and so they have to dial down the sensitivity because they're getting too many false positives for COVID testing.
oh, and some of us were talking about this months ago, and they were telling us that we were conspiracy people. We were out of. We said, no, you're getting this from nurses and doctors. Elon Musk opened his mouth and said, "What? I had 4 tests in one day, 2 positive, 2 negative." I mean, you wouldn't go to the track with these kind of odds, right? If your
Right.
stockbroker gave you these kind of buy comments, it'd be done. I don't get it. But Sam, what scares me is that a lot of our sheeple are following these people. They're believing these people. They're walking lockstep with these people.
So
It's
that is the way that the communist mindset works. And so when Stalin offed Trotsky, literally in a moment, you could have been for Trotsky. In a moment, you had to completely flip and say, no, I hated Trotsky. I was never for him. That was all an act. And if you didn't do that, your life was at stake. And so it's like a complete, there's a word for it. It's a mind, something. It's complete now. And you have an uneducated public that is actually willing just to sort of keep what we'll call the semblance of sanity. They're willing to lose their minds and not test things for truth, but only test them for expedience and usefulness.
Yeah, you've been talking about this for years, and I'm in total agreement with you. They knew what they were doing. They've been dumbing down our education system for decades. They've been setting these young people up for what you see happening in the streets. They have no idea. When you have young people trying to rip down statues of Abraham Lincoln because he was a white supremacist, you just
Right.
say, "My God, have you guys done any of your homework?" Well, yeah, you've done your homework. You've done the homework the left has given you. So you've bought into this. You've bought into this line. I'm on a school board, and they let this 1619 information slip in, and they didn't tell any of us. But thank God for about 200 parents who got with me. We got it removed from the website. We're getting it removed out of the classrooms, and we're screaming about it. You can't give up. I'm a stubborn Italian, so I don't give up easily. And so I've been pounding away at my other board members and some of the teachers that are more on the right, or actually I should say that are really truly Americans, really truly US citizens, and want to make sure that our history is told properly.
Right. And what I love about Joe is he was homeschooling when he got elected to school board. That's dedication. I I am not convinced that we can save the schools anymore. I don't think I've ever actually been convinced of that. But I've doubted myself because so many people were invested in saving the schools, and there is a growing movement that's saying there's no reform that would go deep enough, that would be pervasive enough to justify a conservative and or a Christian in sending their child into that system. What do you think?
I hate to say this, but I think you're 100% on. I really do. And in watching the fight that I've had in the 12 or 13 years I've been on the board, and some of my compadres who are right alongside me trying to fight this, you are fighting a major monster in California called the California Teachers Association. They have a $60 million line of credit. They will come after you with a vengeance. They have me, but I got to tell you something. In this homeschooling thing that's going right, well, they're calling it distance learning, but we know it's homeschooling. And we've been doing this for a long time. They act like it's a new thing. Oh my God, how are we going to handle this? Well, why don't you look at some of the homeschoolers, look at some of the charter schools, and you'll figure out how to make it work. But I've got more information now from parents who are sending me pictures saying, wait a minute, how long have they been teaching this? They're teaching this stuff to my kids, and forgive me, but I'm looking at them going, are you for real? Your child is 14 years old and you've just figured this out? Did you ever crack one of their books? Did you ever ask them a question like, so what went down in history class today? No, they don't. They're detached from their children. So this is forcing them to look at what their kids are being taught. And frankly, after what, 14 years, if your child's been in school quite some time, it's hard to turn that around. But I agree with you. I think you're going to see a whole new way of education. I'm hoping a lot of churches and a lot of other groups step up and start their own little cohorts of schools or education systems. I think that would be a great way to go.
I agree, and I struggle because we've all been schooled so well to one believe that we can't, that we don't know. It's funny. We've been schooled to believe that we don't know things. I mean, that's really a clever ruse to put over on somebody, is to teach them just how much they don't know, right? And that's really been the the crux of the public education system. And so even though I'm hopeful that we're going to have churches step up, I'm not convinced that they will. I think there will be some, but we need a lot more than that. And unfortunately, if the system collapses, that might be really what's best for the kids, because then at least the parents will be somehow on the hook and they'll say, you know what, we got to get something done. Here's a math book. But at the same time, they're expunging all of the history. They're getting, do you know that they burn books like every 5 years in some school districts because the charter for the school district says that they have to replace the books every 5 years? It's absurd. It's not like math has changed. We didn't need to revamp how we teach math. It's not like they discovered the best way to teach math in the past 10 years. And yet that's what they're doing. And they're getting rid of the older textbooks and replacing them with the newer textbooks. And of course, the newer textbooks are going to have references in them that are not true, right? That further the 1619 project, for instance, instead of furthering the belief that America is the greatest nation in the world. because the evidence is in. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, you're 100%. Look at being on the school board. They give us 5 minutes each. What's good education? Okay. And so at the beginning of the meeting, so I decided, you know how I am, I'm a bit of an instigator. So I bring forth the resolution to celebrate Black History Month. But instead of talking about slavery in every one of my whereases, I'm talking about the contributions that the Black community has made, how they've come out of slavery, the real history of what was going on, how the first slave ship that came to Massachusetts, every one of the slaves was set free. The ship captain was put in jail, and the others, because slavery at that time was actually illegal in Massachusetts. But you never hear that. And the Black patriots that we had to help make the revolution happen that made this country what it is today. You will not hear that in public school. I grew up in Boston. We're at 2.5 blocks from the Old North Church. I never heard some of the things that I've been studying. I think we both know who Rick Green is. I took his constitutional coach class. I've learned stuff in that class that I feel like an idiot. I feel like I never knew anything about this country. I can only imagine the average person. But to your point earlier, they've taught, you're right, they've conditioned us to believe we're not educators. We couldn't possibly teach our kids, but we manage checkbooks, right? We pay our mortgages, we go to work every day, we take care of houses, we take care of our kids. My God, how do we
Well,
make it this far?
not right. Not only that, you teach your child to tie his shoes. You teach him how to hold a knife and fork. You teach him how to get dressed every morning. You teach him his numbers and his colors and his words and his letters. And it's not like you're not teaching him. But then all of a sudden, when it comes to, rudimentary addition tables, now you're an idiot. Now you have to go to and by the way, I mean, it defies logic because you drop your kid off at school with some 23-year-old who just got out of school herself. And she's supposed to be better at teaching a whole room full of young kids than you individually with one child. Come on.
No, you're exactly right. And what I love about that is how many of those 22 or 23-year-old kids have children,
Right.
right? Had to go through this, actually own their own homes. I mean, if you're just out of school and you're a teacher, I mean, God bless you for wanting to go down that road. But really, what real world experience do you have? Have you had a mortgage? Are you making your car payment? Are you making enough money to actually put some money away, save some money, or what have you? What can you really impart on the children that you're entrusted with? And
You
that's the
can teach them how to make hand turkeys, how to draw hand turkeys. Like you've gone to school to know how to teach how to draw hand turkeys and pasting techniques for not eating the paste, but actually using it to paste paper together. It's the thing is, it's absurd. But they start that young to condition the parents and condition the kids. And so that's why I call it's not education. I call it schooling. That's what it is.
I have learned how to make slime though for my granddaughter. I guess she learned how to make that at school.
That's fun.
Yeah, yeah. For some, I'm like one of those. Ugh, stay away from me. But no, really, you're right. I mean, you've got younger people, and I don't want to put down the young people. I'm happy that they're stepping up. I'm happy they're wanting to do something like.
No,
Uh,
no, that's not what I'm saying. But what I'm
oh,
saying
you,
is for
I
some
just
reason you're trusting a 23-year-old to know better than you know. That's all. It's
do.
it's that simple. It's you've taught your kid up till this point, but now you're going to turn him over to whatever, a 27-year-old or a 28-year-old with no kids. And you're going to say, now this person knows how to educate my 6 or 7-year-old. It's absurd. And I've got another story actually. When I was in high school, we had a young drama teacher come to the school. And she was very pretty. I remember she looked like she had been the most popular girl in her high school kind of thing. And she was young. She was probably 26 or something. And she told us that really you couldn't succeed as an actor or an actress because the odds were against you. Well, of course she would teach us that, right? Because look at her. She ended up teaching in a public school in Pittsburgh when, of course, her greatest desire was to become a movie star. And so I was taught in high school that there was no hope for me to become an actress.
What a nice thing to tell somebody who's aspiring to do something, and you could have wrapped that. They could have wrapped that into your academics. They could have wrapped that into so many other things, to just to give you some hope that you can move forward and give you something to shoot for. You know, There's so, my big thing with me, my heart is all about career tech education. Not everybody's going to be a surgeon. Not everybody's, going to be a professor. And we should offer our kids the opportunity to learn mechanics, electrical, carpentry. These are things that we're having a hard time getting people to do that these days, because for years we've been telling our kids, you've got to go to college, you've got to have at least $60,000 to $80,000 in debt, or else, you haven't gone to the right college or something, or you haven't taken the right course or what have you. And then they have no work when they come out. A couple of years back, when I was working with a school district on this, 66% of the jobs at that particular time did not require college degrees. They were jobs, again, mechanics, carpenters, plumbers.
Right.
Mechanics and the machinists of today are not the ones that our grandfathers had. They're not these oily, greasy smocks that they have to wear. It's mostly computerized. They're watching over the machines to make sure that they're working. It's a whole different world. Mechanics are making $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year in their first few years of being a mechanic.
Right, because it's more specialized too. It's a specialty, and you go to a trade school because you actually need to learn the tools of the trade. You need to learn them. So it's almost like an apprenticeship. You are specializing, although it doesn't take as long as all the book learning that you got to do, because goodness knows the institutions of higher learning have to re-educate you so that you understand that if you're white, you're a white supremacist, and you're racist, and you're bigoted, and they've got to get that all into the curriculum. Whereas in the trade schools, they're more interested in just turning out a craftsman, somebody who can actually perform. And I love this because, of course, for a while now, I've been saying, I don't ask where you're going to college. I ask why you're going to college. Because that's really something that you ought to consider before you spend a big chunk of money. It's like I'm going to go buy some form of transportation, and I've got $180,000. And so I'm going to go to the dealership, but I might end up with a bicycle. Don't spend $180,000 to get a bicycle.
Well, for education, my understanding is Joey B is going to save us all. So I'm going to sign up for college, run out the biggest bill I can, because he's going to wipe out all the college debt. Didn't you hear?
Well, they did. They did with the the most recent COVID relief. They took, they did a $10,000 debt relief as part of that, student debt relief. So if I had a student loan, I would say, thank you, Joe.
This is how but people realize.
And I mean Joe Messina. Thank you, Joe Messina, taxpayer, not Joe Biden, non-taxpayer.
Anytime I can help out, don't. But when you look at what they're doing, they're drawing them in. They're drawing, to your point, the more ignorant of our electorate. They're drawing them in. I'm paying a little bit here. Oh, you need the $400 a week to survive. So we're going to make sure we take care of you there. And we'll take care of your medical insurance. And we'll give you the vaccine for free. And before you know it, it's going to get to the point when you go into that voting booth, or you're picking up votes for other people, you're going to be stuck with a decision to make. If I vote for person A, I lose this check.
Yes.
If I vote for person B, I get to keep the check. I get to keep feeding my family. I get to keep clothes on my body. That's a tough place to be.
Well, it doesn't matter because your vote doesn't matter anymore, right? It's not like we have integrity in our elections. Listen, we've got 2 minutes left, and I want to get your advice for moving forward. What are you telling your listeners at The Real Side with Joe Messina?
We've been in worse shape in this country, right? If you go back to our founding fathers, think about, they were up against the most powerful military on the planet. For your listeners who believe in God, God is not dead. Okay. I think you've heard that before. Ask him for guidance, ask him what you need to do, and don't give up. Look, people say to me, how can you stay there? I want to get out of here, but I haven't been called to leave yet. I'm on a school board. I've been able to keep Planned Parenthood out. I'm making a difference by being that person that's not being crazy, but being loud and having facts. You've got to fight back. You have to fight back for your kids, and you have to fight back for the next generation. So it's easy for me. I tell people, don't give up. Thank God our founding fathers didn't give up. Thank God Christ didn't give up, or we wouldn't be here today.
Right. In fact, more than don't give up, pick up your sword and your shield and start fighting.
Oh yeah.
If it were easy, it wouldn't be worth doing. We're called to be in the battle, and the battle is ongoing, and it's a battle between good versus evil. So, we just have to put it in the light of eternity and understand that the battle is simply ongoing. And it looks bleak right now because we lost a big battle just now. I can't believe the betrayal that I've seen in the past couple of weeks. Do people literally have no shame? Like, it's crazy to me.
There's no more integrity. There's no more honor, if you would. I mean, whatever it takes to get things done, and it doesn't matter whether it's the truth or a lie. You've seen it. You've seen it with people in our industry and around us.
Right.
I think it's up to us. You need to be a person of integrity. You need to act on that integrity, and you need to act on what's right. To your point, pick up your shield, pick up your sword. We're not advocating violence, but you need to have the tools that you need to make sure we succeed, and we can win.
I love that. Joe Messina, thanks so much for joining me. This is Sam Sorbo on the Sam Sorbo Show. You can find Joe Messina at therealside.com. He does a daily radio show, and it's also on Facebook. Are you still on Facebook?
I am off Facebook and Twitter, my friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. No more. I'm not fighting that one anymore.
Right. Good for you. So therealside.com is where you can find Joe. Thanks so much for coming on, and thanks so much for listening to the Sam Sorbo Show. We'll talk to you all later.